this is a situation where the Jets, they have a new GM, they have a new head coach. They want to do it their own way. It's going to take some time, and I think this actually was probably one of the better days that Aaron Glenn and Darren Morey have had since taking over this season. Yes, here we go. It is episode 90 of Moving the Goalposts here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Make sure to check us out across all social media at MTGPETB across all social media. Of course, make sure to follow us to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ETB Network, where we're over the 1,000 subscriber mark. So if you are new, please leave us a like. Also, subscribe if you're new. And make sure you have your notifications set so you know when all of our shows are going to be coming out here across the network. And if you can't watch us on the video side, make sure to listen to Moving the Goalpost wherever you get your favorite podcast. And Moving the Goalpost is presented by Playback. Stay tuned later on in the show for a word about Playback. I'm Johnny Montalbano, joined this week by Ben Kruse. Ben, good to see you. How you doing?
Good to see you, Johnny. We were talking off the air that it's our first extra episode together as a show without the forecast. So it's obviously good to have a one-on-one show together, and I'm proud to obviously be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a good point. You know, Ben and I have been doing this for years, and we've never had a show together like this. So I'm looking forward to it. And Ben joins us on a week where we actually have a lot to talk about as we now enter the second half of the NFL season. And we just had the trade deadline come and go earlier this week on Tuesday. So we have a lot to discuss with that. We'll briefly discuss the week 9 as it was in the league, which I got to tell you, the big lesson learned in week 9, honestly, Ben, is we can't figure this league out. But there was a couple of very significant things that happened last week that we will discuss. Yep. And then, of course, the Dodgers beat the Blue Jays to win their second straight World Series. So we'll put a capper on the baseball season. We'll look ahead already to the offseason, which is just getting started. Little college football talk as well, as the first college football playoff rankings came out on Tuesday. So we'll spend some time on that. And a lot more. But let's get to it, Ben. And obviously, we'll get things going with the football and more specifically with the trade deadline, which was a very, very active trade deadline for a couple of teams, and especially for the New York Jets. And, you know, it's interesting. And over the last couple of years, Ben, we have seen that the trade deadline in football has actually taken on a bigger role. It used to be like maybe the worst, or maybe not the worst, but the quietest of the four major sports when it came to deadline day. But now that we've had for the last couple of years a 17-game season, the fact that we've had 2 extra teams making the playoffs, it actually increases the value of the trade deadline, and you see more teams making moves. I think we had 8 moves made on Tuesday of the deadline, but the Jets sold off some pieces. They've had a fire sale, and I tell you what, if you're going to have a fire sale, I think this is the way to do it. You trade Sauce Gardner to the Colts for 2 first-round picks. You trade Quinnen Williams for picks. And it really sets them up for the future. So definitely a few ways to talk about this. But let's talk from the Jets side here first. And what did you make about all this?
Yeah, I mean, I got to give the Jets credit. I don't give the Jets credit a lot, you know, myself being a Patriot fan, but I give their front office credit. They've been in an absolute awful situation over there in their front office for years. And they had to figure out specifically what their future was going to be like. And yes, granted, it was 2 guys specifically that meant a lot, specifically not only to their defense, but obviously like leaders to their team. In terms of the fact is, I think a lot of people did not expect a guy like Sauce Gardner to get traded. But when you actually kind of look at the actual details, they're able to get a couple high picks and A.D. Mitchell, a guy specifically that was highly recruited coming out of the draft class that has just not panned out. But they hope specifically that maybe they can unlock a guy like him on the Jets. So I thought that was a really interesting move. Sauce Gardner is going to go to the Colts, a team specifically that, you know, is kind of had a really fun run this year, but maybe that they can get a guy like him over to their team. And let's see specifically if he can make anything, you know, out of that. I know he's obviously kind of declined. You know, people kind of want to make that overall push the last couple of years, but he's still a very, very good cornerback. And I think that, you know, for Sauce, I think it's a good situation. And then for Quinnen Williams, I mean, this was kind of one that I could have seen happening, but I was kind of shocked at the same time. I mean, the fit, though, with Dallas, I mean, Dallas to be given credit. I mean, a lot of people obviously want to rip the Micah Parsons trade. Granted, he still should be a Dallas Cowboy, but that's another topic for another day. But Jerry Jones was able to go get Logan Wilson, who's a pretty decent linebacker, and then Quinnen Williams, who is a very, very good defensive lineman. So they were able to kind of replace at least a little bit of production that Micah Parsons had, specifically at least on the field as a presence standpoint. And I think for the Jets, I mean, they obviously moved on from a couple of their big pieces, but I think that they're kind of in a rebuild type of mode right now, and they want to at least have those picks so they can hopefully kind of build for their future.
Yeah, if you're going to do a rebuild, if you're going to do a fire sale, the Jets did it the right way, and I couldn't believe that actually they were able to get 2 first-round picks for Sauce, but I like it from their side. I'm not as high on it from the Colts side. From the Jets side, I think it's a great move, because the problem the Jets have had over the last, they've been the worst team in the NFL overall in the last 15 plus years. But one of the many problems that they've had is they haven't been the worst team record wise in any given year. And what that does is that it prevents you from having your choice of franchise QBs. And that was no more clear-cut evident than the year that they drafted Zach Wilson, because if you remember that game, I think it was against the Rams, where they won that game late in the season, and the Jaguars end up with the number 1 overall pick as a result, and they are able to get Trevor Lawrence, and the Jets have to settle for Zach Wilson. Now, we don't know if Trevor Lawrence would have been the guy there for the Jets, but it's about having your choice at QB. And now that the Jets now trade these guys, I'm not going to say that they may end up with the worst record. I mean, they have a couple of possible winnable games on their schedule going for the rest of the year, including maybe even this Sunday. Yep. But having the worst record at least gives you that chance of having your choice at QB. And now what you've got is you now have 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years, where you actually can do a couple of things with that. You could actually even trade down and get even more picks. You can get your pot. You have multiple chances of getting your guy. And what I think you also can do now is go out and sign a big name, or maybe not a big name, but a veteran free agent quarterback as well, to have your guy back up. Now, I don't know what quarterback it's going to be for the Jets, because we heard a bunch of names coming out of college. Potentially,
I got one name, at least in the free agent market. Well, I don't want to say free agent market, but a guy specifically that could be available. He's in a situation right now where he's a bench quarterback, but he's had a lot of veteran experience. You kind of might get to where I'm going to get to, but if they don't obviously go via the trade route.
What do you think?
I think Kirk Cousins. Kind of a guy specifically that is just kind of on the bench, but we know for a fact that he's had a ton of quarterback experience. And I think that Raheem Morris really likes Michael Penix. And I think specifically that Kirk Cousins is a guy specifically that doesn't deserve to just be on the bench at a consistent route. Another guy specifically could be a guy like Russell Wilson. I know obviously it's probably not the most sexier pick, kind of given the way that Russell Wilson's been the last couple of years, but at least granted, I mean, these are kind of 2 quarterbacks specifically that, heck, maybe, even the Jets draft a quarterback, maybe they could still kind of come in. I mean, I'd say Kirk is kind of be more where you have to probably give him a lot more money. But like you said, John, I mean, this now kind of gives the Jets kind of all different directions in terms of how they want to go to. And Kirk or Russell Wilson type of quarterback as a free agent, or like kind of just a situation where they're kind of in, they can kind of bring in and maybe either mentor a guy or kind of, start that. It just kind of depends in terms of what they want to do.
Yeah, those are not crazy choices for the Jets, that's for sure. But we'll see what they do and where they're going to end up this year, because there's no guarantee. We thought they were going to go winless, and then you get that win against the Bengals. You have the Browns coming up this Sunday, which at home, not crazy to think the Jets may be able to pull that off on Sunday, especially with new life. But we'll see. But we've already been hearing a lot of rumblings about how the 2027 draft is actually more talented than the 26 draft is. Yeah, and so. As I said, it gives you 2 chances at getting the guy and seeing if it could pan out. Now, as far as the Quinnen Williams trade goes, the Jets are doing this rebuild style, so I have no problem with that. I'm not high for Dallas on this, and what I mean by that is I don't think that and I know we'll talk about this, but I don't think that Quinnen Williams or Logan Wilson gives the Cowboys a chance to make the playoffs this year. They're not a good team. I mean, that was no more evident than Monday night losing to the to the Cardinals at home and only putting up 17 points. But at the same time, there was a lot of credit on the Cardinals defense Monday. But we'll see. But I think, you have to do something. This is a situation where the Jets, they have a new GM, they have a new head coach. They want to do it their own way. It's going to take some time. And I think this actually was probably one of the better days that Aaron Glenn and Darren Morey have had since taking over this season. And, they're going to want to play hard the rest of the way out. There are players on this team that are going to be playing for contracts. And think about this, too. Not only do you get draft picks with these two guys, but you got a guy in Mitchell, as you said, as a decent receiver. You got a defensive player in Smith back from the Cowboys as well. So you did get some players back as well, which we don't normally see. We don't see usually player-for-player trades. Obviously, this was player and picks. But we usually don't see player-for-player and picks kind of deals like we did between these two. Now,
and two, to remember, the Jets also made a trade for John Mechie, who is kind of a similar situation like A.D. Mitchell. The Jets, granted, it kind of helps when you kind of at least win a ball game if you're a Jet fan, right? You obviously win a ball game, and then the following week, obviously when you're on your bye week, you have one of probably the busiest out of all teams to be kind of headlining the NFL trade deadline, and obviously now having a ton of pieces for your future. So I'm not obviously going to give the Jet fans and Jets a lot of prop. Obviously, Nick and a bunch of my Jet fans, I want to obviously be happy for them. But this is kind of one time I'm like, all right, they're doing something right.
Yeah, and it's a good point you made. They also made a deal about a week or so ago for Mechie from the Eagles, where the Eagles got Carter as well for defense. Now, another team that we were talking about, we talked about it briefly in the open, was the Dallas Cowboys, and they made a couple of moves as well. Logan Wilson from the Bengals, Quinnen Williams from the Jets. Comes out there, Jerry Jones teased everybody again on Monday night about the fact that he was in works about making a deal or two. So I guess he technically was right, but I don't think these are the biggest names in the world for Jerry Jones to be getting. When you're the Cowboys and your defense is just, it's bad. That's the nicest way I could say about it. I don't think these are guys that are going to help this year. Maybe you start building this and maybe for next year. I think these are two moves for the Cowboys that are more for the future than they are for the present. 3-5-1, you look atrocious. You have a couple of favorable games, but when you're them and you're not a good team, it doesn't really matter. So I think these two moves really for the Cowboys are more about next year than they are this year.
And another thing too, Johnny, is they didn't address their weakest part on their defense. Their weakest part on their defense is more of their secondary than it is as their front. Their front can do all that they can, but you saw a guy like Jacoby Brissett, who granted is a decent quarterback. I want to say great. He's just kind of a placeholder type of quarterback that you want. But the Cardinals, for a team that's just been struggling to consistently win ball games, essentially went into a play specifically like we talked about on Football Forecast, which, by the way, if you guys get a chance to watch it, we were talking about how the Cowboys are great at home. And the Cardinals, granted, this is why football is such a weird game. The Cardinals have been a team that have not been able to close games recently in the last couple of weeks, and they went into a place against a team specifically that's won countless times this year at home. So, one thing I kind of saw, and I think you can obviously attest to this as well, Johnny, is their pass defense is brutal. And so, they obviously brought these two guys in. I think they're going to be helpful, but they obviously kind of really address specifically what their weaknesses were on their defense, and that is their secondary.
Totally agree. And Quinnen Williams is a great run stopper, and that's who they got when they got Clark from the Packers in the Micah Parsons trade. He's a great run stopper. Quinnen Williams is basically a run stopper too. So that doesn't address your biggest needs. So I don't think the Cowboys really came out on top getting these two moves. They're moves. You could see Jerry gets looked up to that way, but they're not the big moves that people were thinking about. And again, people out there talking about the fact that there's great moves. It's not great for this year. It's maybe great for next year, but it's not great for this year. All right. Let's be honest. This is not a good team. I feel for Dak Prescott because he's playing his heart out, but he has no help. He has no help. This to me, what Dak Prescott is doing this year, Ben, is reminding me of Joe Burrow a lot from last year. He's going to put up great numbers, but his team is just not supportive.
Joe's case is even worse. His defense can't stop a nosebleed at any point. You obviously saw what happened the last 2 weeks, for example. He wasn't even out there on the field. Joe Flacco was. And, his offense, his special teams guys put up crazy points, 30-plus points, but then their defense just never get it done. It's crazy.
And the Bengals, I think, should have sold off a few more pieces. Like, I'm surprised they didn't trade Hendrickson. I think maybe the only reason was possibly the fact that he had been banged up, and maybe teams could have been concerned about his hip injury because he had been playing with it, re-aggravated, went out. And, I mean, you're giving up 47 points with these guys. I mean, you just came off of 47 to the Bears. I've never seen it this bad before in Cincinnati, to the point where there's a good possibility that Zach Taylor may not survive there after this year. I agree. When you're that team, and the division is actually a little bit more favorable now, although I think the Ravens are going to take off.
I do too.
We'll see, but I like these moves for the Cowboys for next year. I don't like them from this year. And no, the Cowboys are not a playoff team. They will be a spoiler. That's their ceiling in 2025. It is being a spoiler. It is not a playoff team. And I know that they've got. They're off this week and they come back against the Raiders. It's all right. Let's just stop. All right. It's not going to happen this year down there in Big D, no matter if Jerry Jones says it, if the media says it, or what. It's just not going to do it this year down there in Dallas. A couple of other guys we'll talk about here that did get dealt by the deadline. Jacoby Myers went to the Jaguars. Raheed Shaheed, who's a name that we've been talking about, also went to the Seahawks. I think those are two solid moves. When you look at the Jaguars side, they're dealing now with Travis Hunter being out with a very significant injury. I don't think they're telling you the full story with that injury. When they're telling you it's a non-contact injury, I know they're saying I think they're saying the ACL's intact, but he's going for more testing and stuff. I mean, that cannot be understated how big of a blow that is. So it's a nice, solid pickup to get in Jacoby Myers. I love what the Seahawks are doing. The Seahawks look like they're the real deal this year. I mean, the only thing that might help, that might prevent them this year, is the fact that they've got two other 6-win teams in that division.
Yeah.
But
I mean, look at Seattle's case, right? Sam Darnold's playing at a MVP. Only even go crazy to say an MVP type of year. I mean, obviously a lot of people kind of see Baker and Drake and a lot of other quarterbacks, but Sam Darnold, if you actually kind of look at the overall tape right now, he's essentially kind of found his new home. Very similar like to the way that Baker was saying playing over Tampa Bay. Sam obviously was with the Jets. Baker obviously was with the team like the Browns. Kind of two teams specifically that they obviously did what they could, but they really had to be in a more of a successful situation, and they both are now, which is obviously awesome to see and kind of really unlocking their potential. In terms of the Jacksonville Jaguars case, I 100% agree with you, Johnny, in terms of the fact is Jacoby Myers, I think, is a great overall receiver. I mean, granted, that's obviously a really good piece for them. But I also think, they're bringing him in for a certain reason. The fact is Travis Hunter, yes, obviously his ACL is intact, but even if he does come back, right? And, we don't know in terms of when that's going to be, how is he going to be kind of coming off of it? It usually does not, it takes a while for guys specifically to kind of come off of something like that. It doesn't, obviously just kind of come back and you're like going off like crazy when you come back. So, and then Brian Thomas, if he's going to bang up himself too, like they need to at least have some veteran, help there. And so Myers hopefully can kind of come in and kind of help him out. It's funny because Shefty's tweet on this trade said that Myers was literally as a Raider just playing the Jaguars, and now he's going to be going to face the other team swapping sides. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I mean, it's I think it's a decent move for Jacksonville, but I think it's kind of more on a concerning part as well too, because typically when you kind of add a guy like that, it's kind of not usually a good sign for the other guys that are kind of injured.
BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr. has not been able to get it going with the Jaguars this year. I mean, there were talks about that in camp when Liam Cohen took control there this year, that BTJ was having problems down there. So yeah, giving Trevor Lawrence some help there definitely will help him. And a couple of other teams real quick before we move on here, Ben. I think the Eagles, again, Howie Roseman just continues to do it. We talked about it with Michael Carter in the Jets. You get Jair Alexander, you get Jalen Phillips. I say this, I can't stand Howie Roseman, but man, he is the best GM of the sport. What he is able to do, because you know what he does? He takes chances. If one doesn't work out, he goes out and gets another guy. And I love that. I mean, more teams should, if only more teams would do that. But I give Howie Roseman a lot of credit. I thought the Eagles were a big winner this week in the deadline. I thought the Ravens getting some guys help as well. And you see the Ravens now starting to get things going, back-to-back wins. Lamar Jackson is back. That division is very favorable now. You've got two teams that are out of it. The Steelers, we still don't really know about. So to me, those are my also big winners from the deadline.
Yeah, I'd say the Ravens obviously are starting to really catch their stride now, which I don't think is very shocking when you have a guy that has MVP type of ceiling like Lamar Jackson on a consistent year basis. And they're getting help, obviously with Roquan and Kyle Hamilton obviously coming back the last couple of weeks too. I think it just helps them out a lot. And yeah, I just think that, if you look at kind of that division, obviously the Steelers, yeah, they had a big win against the Colts on Sunday, but it's kind of a team that's kind of going up and down every single week. The Bengals obviously have a terrible defense. I mean, it's at an all-time worst defense. So, I mean, that division I'd say is really up for grabs. I mean, if you're a Ravens fan too. So I'm definitely not overlooking that team for sure as well. And then the Eagles, like you said with Howie Roseman, it reminds me of Andrew Freeman with the Dodgers in terms of the way he kind of goes and pursues guys. It doesn't really matter specifically kind of what's in his way. He's going to make that push. He's going to make that splash. And you can't really help but just kind of respect it because specifically it's not more of like a jealousy standpoint. I mean, you can say that for kind of some other teams, but it's kind of more of like, I don't care what it's going to take. I'm going to go out there and do what I can to get a guy. And Jalen Phillips, he's a solid defensive edge guy. But you know what? They obviously had to get it to a point of need, and that's what specifically they want to have to try to get another championship. And that's essentially what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and a couple of teams maybe a little surprised that didn't make a move. The Bills, I know they were probably in the works to try and get a receiver, but they stayed pretty quiet in the deadline.
Yep.
But we'll find out. If there's anything we've learned as in the first half is this is a true week-to-week league, and we keep having these discussions about who do we think is going to be in these conference championships, in the playoffs, in the conference championships, in the Super Bowl. It changes week in and week out. If we were talking last week, I would have given you some teams after I watched last week, which will be a nice transition that we'll do right now. It's a whole nother story. Then, if we look back at week 9, just real quick, I know we could go through all these games, but there's 2 teams that I really want to focus in on as far as week 9 goes, because there was 2 pretty significant injuries that came out of this week, in my opinion. And that was Joe Alt, the offensive lineman for the Chargers, who had a second high ankle sprain of the season, and Tucker Kraft from the Packers.
Yeah.
And I think there's no coincidence. Now, the Chargers did make a very late move, just talking about the trade deadline. They made a very late move right at the buzzer to get Trevor Penning. And I think that's going to help a lot because it cannot be understated how significant the Joe Alt injury is. That when the Chargers had a little bit of a struggle earlier in the season, they had a little bit of a stretch there where they were 1-2, and it was with Joe Alt being out. I remember that because as a Giants fan, when we played the Chargers, Jackson Dart's first start, that game changed when Alt got hurt and left the game and didn't return. The Giants took advantage of that. But that is a big blow. And the Tucker Kraft injury also a big blow to the Packers because Kraft was their leading receiver. And I'm not just saying that because I had him in fantasy. Trust me, I have to go in another direction now in terms of fantasy too.
Yeah.
But he was their leading guy. Now, I know they've got Christian Watson back, but he's still trying to work his way back from the ACL injury last year. So 2 very significant injuries. As far as week 9 as a whole, I can't figure this league out. It's just absolutely crazy. What's your big takeaways from last week?
Well, I mean, I think I was talking about the Bengals. I mean, that defense is just kind of something that at a historically bad, record. We kind of look at it in terms of giving up points when your offense is doing everything possible. I don't think there's many teams out there when you could put up 30-plus points, but you give up essentially around the same that you put up offensively as you do as your defense. I mean, like you mentioned with Zach Taylor, I mean, I think, if this obviously doesn't get a change in the next couple of weeks, and this keeps happening. I mean, the Bears specifically didn't even have any timeouts, and the Bengals specifically on that final drive still gave up a touchdown. So it's all bad there. In terms of the Chiefs Bills game, I want to quickly say this. Obviously the Bills still know how to beat the Chiefs in the regular season. I think that's kind of what the overall way that you kind of look at it. But, obviously I have to kind of see the bigger picture because when you obviously kind of talk about the postseason, it's been always the Kansas City Chiefs that has won it. So, now it's all about specifically if you're a Bills fan that's out there, can you be able to get over the hump when more likely than not, you'll probably be playing against this team again come the playoffs. I mean, I think we've kind of seen this for the last couple of years now. This has been kind of the new Brady Manning type esque kind of in this new era of football. So that's kind of my next thing is in terms of can the Bills kind of bring the magic that they have against this Chiefs team in the regular season and be able to translate that over in the postseason. And then obviously too, that I mean, like you said, the Chargers. I mean, that's obviously Slater also is out too for them, the offensive line. So all obviously having that injury too, obviously being out early on the season with kind of a similar esque type of injury. It's just a massive blow because the Chargers, I think, are kind of in the mix right now. But it's kind of like with the Bengals with Burrow. If you can't be able to protect your quarterback, it takes a lot specifically out of a guy like him. And Herbert's obviously playing at a very good pace. I mean, granted, they did beat the Titans only by 7 on Sunday, which is a little bit worrisome, but they obviously got the win. You just can't replace that specifically. And another thing too, the Washington Commanders. Why is Dan Quinn keeping Jaden Daniels in the fourth quarter of a blowout game? I didn't actually watch really much of that fourth quarter because I just couldn't watch most of it. I was really tired, but I just heard what happened the next day after, and I obviously saw it too, that Jaden Daniels, I think dislocated his shoulder. I'm pretty sure that was the injury, or his arm, his elbow.
Elbow, his right, his throwing elbow, but it was. I saw the replays of it. It was not pretty.
So I just think that's also coaching malpractice because the Commanders have just been injury prone like the last couple of weeks here. And the last thing that you want if you're a head coach is to keep your starting quarterback, essentially your franchise, out there in a blowout. I mean, if there's any hope specifically for the Commanders to kind of keep afloat, it's you want to obviously keep your quarterback healthy and trying to make something out of it. Now, essentially, your quarterback is probably going to be out for, I don't know about the rest of the season, but a lot probably in the next couple of weeks here because a dislocated elbow is not pretty at all. It's not ideal. But I think that's a coaching malfunction if I've ever seen it. So that's kind of what I'm seeing here in this past week.
Yeah. So the Commanders are 3-6 right now. I think there's no reason for Jaden Daniels to play again this year because I don't see the Commanders being able to come back from this. They've been undermanned all year. That seems to be the word to describe them this year. If it's not Jaden that's been out, it's been Terry McLaurin. If it's not just him, it's Debo, it's Noah Brown. Marshawn Lattimore has not been good this year defensively. That defense is getting worse every week. I think that and I think you had said this too, this feels like the 49ers of last year. It absolutely does.
It's really a microcosm of it because the Niners obviously have been kind of a team that's been kind of making the championship and the NFC title the last couple of years, but then, in a year specifically that they don't make it, it's typically because of an injury to a big-time piece, or not even a big-time piece, but it's just kind of a piece that obviously helps them a lot. And the Commanders, a team that legitimately was just in the NFC title game last year, and a lot of people felt like specifically that they were going to take that next step to maybe have a microcosm season like their past year. They're just getting injury queued like crazy, and a lot of their injuries specifically are to big-time players, including their franchise guy.
Yeah, it's just too much to overcome. The Niners had that problem last year. Now this year they've had not as many injuries, but they've been able to overcome it. They're 6-2 right now. But just to prove, and the phrase of the week is you just can't figure this league out because you just look at some of these games. J.J. McCarthy comes back for the Vikings. They beat the Lions by 3. Now McCarthy wasn't that great, but he had some moments. But there are other moments that he didn't look great. We talked about it with the Packers, the Tucker Kraft injury. Jordan Love had several brain cramps there against the Panthers. And I'll tell you what, though, you look at the Panthers for a second. Bryce Young, he's not lining up the numbers, but I'll tell you what, he's now got a running back in Rico Dowdle. By the way, you think the Cowboys want him back? They have Rico Dowdle, who's been absolutely outstanding, a diamond in the rough if there ever was one. And Bryce Young, like I said, he's not putting up great numbers, maybe not all worthy numbers, but I'll tell you what, he's leading that team on some game-winning drives down the stretch there, and to get a win on the road, which Bryce Young I think had one road win in his career coming into the season at Lambeau Field as almost a 2-touchdown underdog, quite amazing. Broncos got past the Texans. C.J. Stroud was concussed. Now we don't know as of now. We'll know as the week goes on if he will be able to play. But Bo Nix and the Broncos again come through in the fourth quarter. They were down 15-7, came back, another fourth quarter win for the Broncos. I don't know if they can continue to do that as this show gets ready to premiere. They're going to take on the Raiders there at home at at Empower Field at Mile High. So, look, Broncos keep finding ways. I don't know how many more times they can go to the well, being down as much as they are in the fourth quarter. But I'll tell you what, Bo has been great. Yes, I believe in him like you do, Ben.
Yeah.
So yes, your Patriots got past the Falcons. It was a closer game in the end, but look, Patriots find a way to win all kinds of games, and they have one of the games, if not the game of the week. I can't wait to watch against the Bucs down there in Tampa, coming off their bye week. Obviously, we'll talk about that a lot more on our show, Football Forecast, later on this week. The Niners got past the Giants. Look, I'm not going to get into much details about it. Giants have their quarterback. They don't have much else, though. That's what it comes down to. And you can't win without your star running back and your star number one receiver. Another team that's decimated with injuries there. Colts, Steelers. Steelers got past, as I said, the Steelers got the win over the Colts. A little bit of concern from Indy's side. I'm not ready to go there just yet. We'll see. They're
kind of due for a game like this, to be fair. I mean, they were just on a complete, just dynamite, just trajectory run. And it's like, water kind of find itself at some point. And if there was going to be kind of a loss that you can kind of see of like an understandingly type of loss, it would be a team like Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is always kind of a place, regardless if they're good or bad, they're always a kind of team that's always going to be tough to place in an environment like that.
First real reality check for Daniel Jones. First chance for him to try and turn it around, see if he can bounce back. Interestingly enough, now they get Sauce Gardner, and now they have to go to Berlin to take on the Falcons, which should be a very intriguing matchup. One of the bigger totals, by the way, in an international game happening there on Sunday morning. The Chargers got past the Titans, but we talked about that already. The Joe Alt injury, massive blow there for the Chargers. Rams got past the Saints. That was Tyler Shuck's NFL debut. It wasn't pretty. But I'll tell you what, Matt Stafford also putting himself in the MVP conversation at 37 years old. It's amazing. He started the year with a little bit of a back issue, but I'll tell you what, he hasn't missed a beat at all. That team has been healthy too. They stay healthy. I tell you what, you have 3 6-win teams in the NFC West. It's going to be fascinating to see which one can keep it going here out there. Jaguars got past the Raiders in overtime. I mean, just one thing I'll add to this, besides the fact that it was another one of my bad beats, and I sincerely apologize if anybody took my advice at Montalbano NY on Twitter, because I didn't have a grasp on this league at all this past week. I mean, again, that was the game I thought I had. I took the under in that game. It was 9-6 in the fourth quarter, and it ended up with 59 points. And Pete Carroll, what are you doing again at the goal line throwing the ball? I mean,
I've seen that movie before.
You've seen it before.
I've seen it before, so it doesn't surprise me.
Pete, I mean, you got. I don't know. I just don't get
it. Listen, right? You know that the Raiders are in a terrible situation. I bet Pete Carroll is thinking to himself, "Well, we have nothing to lose at this point in time. I'm gonna go back to my old ways. I'll remember specifically what happened." And listen, they got a touchdown on the prior play, of the passing play. Carroll was probably thinking he was too cute about it, trying to do the same exact type of thing. I mean, the play was open. The play, if you actually kind of look at it, it was open. So, I mean, the actual play itself, like, we can't obviously fault him for that. If Gino obviously kind of puts on more of a plane, it's going to be probably the win for the Raiders. But I just go for the run. I mean, you have to.
Right. The issue is not that he went for 2 there, because everybody in the Kid Brother would have told you to go for 2. It was just the design of it. And then, you're throwing it, and basically it's right to a defensive player who backs the ball down. Yeah. It was just brought back deja vu. And then the other games we talked about, Bills over the Chiefs, Seahawks destroyed the Commanders, and the Cardinals over the Cowboys. One interesting thing also real quick at the end that we found out earlier this week too is Jacoby Brissett's going to be starting going forward for the Cardinals, when Jonathan Gannon originally said earlier in the late Monday night that it was going to be Kyler Murray, and then he changed his tone on Tuesday. But I think the way that Brissett's playing, I think you definitely have to roll with that.
Yeah. So he looks more in sync with that offense. He plays a different type of style as well too as Kyler Murray, and it might not be a knock on Murray, but I just felt like that offense was just flowing a lot better with Brissett. Brissett's kind of more of a pass, drop back to the guy, and then throw it. Murray's kind of more of a scramble type of, throwing it down the field. So, I think for Gannon's standpoint, he's probably thinking, I think they're 3-5 right now. They've been pretty much in almost every single game. And, he's probably thinking, they just won a game on Monday, ride with your hot hand. And then if Murray's obviously ready to go, then obviously you kind of have a decent, win-win situation where essentially, Murray's obviously not ready yet. You have a guy like Brissett who's a perfect bridge type of quarterback in which, he should be able to know the system now at a, decent rate. And so obviously if he trusts him more, then rise him out.
Yeah. And Cardinals Seahawks next week in Seattle. Pretty cool game there as well.
Hey fans, Novig is here to change the way you play. Available in 35 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and New York, Novig is America's #1 sports prediction market, and it's 10 times more profitable than traditional sports books because there's no house edge. Instead, you're betting directly against other sports fans just like yourself. Novig is also the only free exchange, which means you keep every dollar you win, whether you're putting plays down on the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball, college sports, or even UFC and tennis. Novig gives you the power to pick the best odds, or better yet, set your own. Sign up today with the code ETB Network, and you'll get 1,000 Novig coins plus $5 in Novig cash, and special bonus offers like spending $5 and getting $50 back. Novig, where fans play smarter. You must be 21 years or older to play. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Moving the Goalposts is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, rubbing your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show.
All right, let's switch gears, Ben, because we went into Sunday a little bit exhausted from a late night on Saturday night after the Dodgers beat the Blue Jays at 7 to win their second straight World Series, a World Series that had a little bit of everything. An 18-inning affair earlier in the series. Dodgers coming back. I got to tell you, I thought after that 18-inning game that the Blue Jays were done. I usually don't like to say that, but you lose a long game like that. You put basically your whole energy into that game, and I just felt like they were done. But you know what? They come back. They win the next two games, which I didn't see coming. They are up 3-2 going to Toronto, going home. All they needed was one win. I thought they had it. Didn't win Game 6. It was a great pitching performance by who was it in Game 6? It was Yamamoto. Yeah, Yamamoto in Game 6, and then and then think about this too. Game 7, you get to Shohei early, get a 3-run home run. Dodgers come back a little bit, but then they take the lead. It's 4-2 going into the 8th. You get a Max Muncy home run. And you get a Miguel Rojas home run in the 9th, and it's just like, oh my freaking gosh! Because it's not like the Freddie Freemans or the Mookie Betts of the world or the Otanis. It's Miguel Rojas. I mean, the Blue Jays pitchers did such a remarkable job for the most part in this series. I mean, you saw what guys like Betts and company were hitting. The Trey Savages of the world did great, and it's just. You just can't beat the defending champs. I mean, I think Joe Davis said it great. To beat the champ, you have to knock out the champ, and they couldn't knock him down. I mean, they had it about a 9 count if you wanted to really compare it. And I cannot believe that the Dodgers pulled this off. And as happy as I am for Clayton Kershaw because he gets to go out with back-to-back championships, I am equally as heartbroken for Don Mattingly. On the Blue Jays side. But this World Series will go down as one of the best of all time. In my lifetime, I think I would probably put a top 3 for sure. I would have to think of them real quick. I mean, I think of the 2001 World Series was absolutely incredible for a variety of reasons. But, I mean, this is right up there as one of the best World Series that I've witnessed in 35 years on this planet.
Yeah. Just from a neutral, no dog in the fight. This might be the best World Series that I have seen in my life. And I think a lot of people, if you remember, obviously before the World Series obviously happened, a lot of people are like, I don't really care about this matchup. It's obviously the Blue Jays, team hasn't been there. And then the Dodgers, for a non-baseball perspective, Johnny, a lot of people don't really care about this matchup, coming in. But then look what happens, right? it turns out to be probably the best World Series from like a fan perspective of things. For those that got the chance to watch me and a bunch of other people on playback for Game 7, I mean, that was just completely back and forth, nerve-wracking, awesome moments, and we want to thank everybody that got the chance. We actually, Johnny, on that playback stream, we actually had some of the best numbers, at least in our viewership, than we've had for any type of stream. And it's because specifically, everybody was kind of tuning in. It was later on a Saturday night. A lot of the college football games are done, and pretty much everybody now is like, from baseball fan perspective, everybody's now watching now, which is awesome. It's awesome to see. So, congratulations to the Dodgers for another World Series. Got to give them props, but you also kind of give props to the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays were kind of a team coming into the season that nobody really expected. I was a non-believer on them. I'll take it. I'll take the L on that. The Jays obviously, listen, it really came down to obviously the last two games, and it was essentially they didn't play bad ball, but it was all about their execution later in the games. Obviously in the bottom of the ninth inning, the extras, and then obviously in the Game 7, which if obviously Kike Hernandez and Andy Pages don't run into each other and the ball pops out instead of catching it, or the Varsho hit kind of goes through. The Blue Jays obviously they should have won this championship, but the Dodgers also too. I mean, like you said, you have to beat the champ to beat the champ, and anything specific that's a little type of mistake. I mean, the base running mistake by Barger in Game 6. To have a chance to maybe even set up for a thing like Springer. I think you can kind of see specifically, at least as great as the two teams were, what team specifically kind of was ready for the mattered moments compared to the other team specifically that wasn't able to execute. And the Dodgers specifically, give credit to Yamamoto. I mean, Yamamoto legitimately pitched about 6-7 innings in Game 6, and then in the next game after in Game 7, he's legitimately pitching in the most pressurized situation. Bases loaded, 1 out, and he has to find a chance to get out of it. And he finds a way to get out of it, making the pitches. Legitimately a walk, and the Blue Jays won the World Series, or hit, and the Blue Jays a sac fly, and the Blue Jays won the World Series. And he got out of it, and then even in bottom of the 10th too. After Will Smith got that homer in the top half, you had first and third with Alejandro Kirk, a pretty good contact guy. I think a lot of Blue Jay fans specifically kind of wanted that moment. And Yamamoto made a perfect pitch on the outside to ground Kirk into that double play for the Dodgers to win the World Series. So even when the Dodgers won the World Series in terms of the overall play, it was still very, very tight. And just there was no looking back of I guess outside of that first game where it's kind of blowout, every other game, Johnny, was phenomenal. It was just it was hell of a watch. I'd be curious to see what the viewership is after this overall World Series was done. Because it had to put records. It was just absolutely incredible.
Actually, it's funny you say that because it came out earlier in the on Wednesday. I can pull up the what MLB Communications did. Now, they the MLB PR likes to include out Canada and Japan. I'll let it fly for this because obviously we have players from Japan, and obviously the series was played involving the Canadian team. It averaged 51 million viewers, which was making it the most watched MLB game in 34 years.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I really didn't have a dog in this fight. I'm a Yankee fan. I cannot be hypocritical and talk about the Dodgers and their spending spree. I mean, it's the Yankees have been doing this not to this extreme, but they've gone out there and spend a lot of money on free agents and other players before. So I understood that. Look, the Blue Jays thing was very, very special too. The thing that's really kind of special about this too, and we've seen this really in all sports, it's hard to repeat. It really is, and it's because a lot of the time it's because some of the players, even the valuable role players, you can't hold on to, or they go on and they get bigger deals from other teams between free agency and whatnot. And the fact that these seasons are longer, there's more teams that make the playoffs. So it really is. It's a big challenge to try and repeat. So I think it is kind of special that the Dodgers did this. And of course, people are out there. They're talking about the whole salary cap thing. Look, I'm not going to go into details because I'll tell you right now that will be. And I don't really want to talk about this today because we're coming off of a very great moment for baseball. But this whole salary cap discussion that's happening in baseball is what is going to lead to a lockout. There's no doubt in my mind. At the end of next year, we will be on either this show or some show, you and I. we will be talking about the fact that baseball will be in a lockout the next year. But I mean, it's not time to think about that. It's time to enjoy this, because this, I will think about, I thought about this long and hard. In the 35 years I've been alive, I think this is probably a top 3, if not maybe even top best World Series that I've ever seen. I thought
even two really quick, Johnny, before we keep on going, is that Dodger fans and Blue Jay fans that were legitimately on social media I was reading, essentially having the compliments for each other. And typically, like, you know, you have a team specifically after, you know, in the World Series, like maybe a rival team, or just both teams specifically felt like that they had like love for each other, which was like, you don't really see that very often. But then you kind of look back and it's like, well, you know, that's what baseball is all about, is you actually get a good series between two like pretty good teams at the end of the day. And you have both fan bases basically saying like, I would have felt the same way if I was in the other heartbreak of things, this and that. And this is also too the defending champs essentially in their fan base basically saying that. So they essentially could have been like back to back, what can you do now? But instead it's like, I kind of know how it felt like to get to the other of the mountaintop for countless years. So I think that they're kind of giving a team like Toronto, a team that has not gotten there for a while, and just giving that props and stuff. I thought was really, really cool as well.
For sure, yeah. And again, this World Series had it all. Blue Jays definitely had their chances. Dodgers, got through when it mattered the most. But I mean, if you go through between the extra inning games, between the dramatic moments, between the storylines, really was one of the more remarkable World Series that we have ever seen. Like I said, I think 2001 was an amazing series, not only because it was right after the 9/11 attacks, but just how that series played with the Yankees and the Diamondbacks. Yanks trying for 4 in a row, the way how that series ended. I have to say, probably the other one was probably the Rangers and Cardinals. I think that World Series was also very, very cool. How the Cardinals came back in Game 6 to force the Game 7, and then they win it. That was probably the other one too. But this is right up there as well. And I'm happy for Clayton Kershaw, because now he definitely will get into Cooperstown. I mean, not that he needed an extra accolade, but to go out with back-to-back World Series. Yeah. Remarkable career for one of the better pitchers that we've seen in our lifetimes, for sure, Ben.
Yeah, and another thing too is, you think about it, not only he gets to go on top of the rain, he gets to go out on a career with probably one of the best World Series that we have maybe ever seen, and he gets to be essentially kind of at the par. I mean, look about it. He specifically he came in to pitch that long 18th inning of that game, and he was able to kind of keep the Dodgers game essentially afloat. So he didn't obviously have a lot of pitching situations, but he did have a big one in Game 3 to keep that Dodgers win alive. So you got to give Kershaw a lot of props, and to come out with the rain and to obviously do what he did for the city of LA as well too. I think it was awesome for him. So credit to him.
Yeah, I mean, he came in that game, bases loaded, 2 out. And my big beef about bringing starting pitchers into relievers role, but he got the job done. So what? I mean, but I still didn't like the move, but at the same time, he got it done. Sure. But you know what though, Ben? As much as right now they're still celebrating, even in the hours and days
Hollywood
after this World Series. You know what it's time for? Hot stove season.
Let's
and this
go.
is sometimes the most exciting part about baseball. And what we love to talk about is the hot stove. And I know you've had some stuff with the Red Sox. Yankees will have some names that they have to decide on. The Mets have already been in the news because Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz both opting out. Yep. Your big thing is the fact that Trevor Story is staying in. He is not opting out.
Right. Yeah. Story, obviously, he has his contract coming up in a couple of years as a free agent, but he was opting in. He basically was kind of saying that, he really values the city of Boston, and pretty much kind of giving himself a chance too, when he's kind of gone through a lot of stuff injury-wise. And then last year, he put up one of his best seasons that he has been with this team. And I think that he obviously kind of wants to lead kind of some of those young kids and the young talent that we have with guys like Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, and Christian Campbell. So I think that's going to also be big. But then now it's all about, for us, it's about Alex Bregman in terms of what he wants to do. My overall gut as of right now, obviously, if you kind of put me on the spot, is I do think he does stay with the Red Sox. I think that he loves the city of Boston. I think that, granted, obviously, sometimes it's the family, but his wife was doing a lot of stuff with Harvard and kind of a lot of stuff specifically with like colleges kind of for her job. So I think she really likes it. And he kind of, I don't know specifically what I look at like in the market for Bregman, who else specifically kind of wants to be there? I mean, I guess it'd be the Tigers because they obviously had some interest with him. Maybe a team like the Mets, but I don't know if the Mets obviously want to pay him big if they obviously want to go for Alonso. So I think for the Red Sox, I think that Bregman really is like it's a slam dunk type of situation for him to obviously come back. I'll probably go with about a 5 to 6 year type of deal. I feel like there might be an overpay that fans don't want to see, but I do think that it's big for him. He obviously was hurt in the second half of this past year, so I think that we really didn't get to see a full outlook of what he was supposed to be. He was very, very good in the first half. So I think that he does come back, and you put obviously Marcelo Meyer at shortstop. So you really, I think, have Story at second, Marcelo at short, and then Bregman at third. And then it's all about specifically your number 2, behind Garrett Crochet. Obviously, Brian Bayo and Lucas Giolito and a lot of guys did really step up this year. But I think if the Red Sox obviously want to go deeper in the playoffs next year, they need to go out and get a number 2 guy. And reports out as of right now from many media places that I've been seeing and what I've been hearing is they want to get that number 2 guy, whether it's a guy specifically like Joe Ryan or a guy like Freddie Peralta, there's going to be a lot of options that are going to be open for this Red Sox team. And I think that they want to probably go with the trade route because I do think that they want to try to spend money, hinted maybe for a guy like Pete Alonso. So we will see specifically what happens, but the Red Sox have a ton of situations that they want to go for, but obviously getting the Story done thing was a very good checkpoint. Now it's specifically about figuring out the outfield. Maybe you want to trade Willie Abreu or Jaron Duran for a starting pitcher. That could obviously be a decent situation there. What do you want to do at first base? Is Tristan Casas obviously going to come back and be that long-term guy? Or do you go out and get a guy like a Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez if they don't want to get that bigger piece like a Pete Alonso? And then obviously Alex Bregman at third base. If Bregman doesn't come back, then what are your other options? So there's a lot of different situations, but getting Story obviously there first, coming in, and then kind of going with the pitching, and then there's a bunch of stuff to kind of follow suit. But I obviously do very expect that we're going to be one of the more busier teams in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and the Mets, I think, will be another busy team that we'll be talking about a lot here because obviously already Alonso opted out, which is not a surprise. I mean, after the end of the season, it seemed like the season ended and 2 minutes later, Alonso saying he's going to opt out or just the feelings that he's going to opt out. The Diaz one was a little bit surprising to me, and it's going to create an interesting thing for the Mets here because the Mets need help in that bullpen in the worst way. I mean, they were going through pitchers like crazy last year, and one of the names that we've been hearing about a lot and we'll hear about a lot in this offseason is Tariq Skubal from the Tigers. And the Mets have been linked to him because they have the pieces and they have the money, but we'll find out. But it's always a fun time because there's always stuff with baseball, with the off season. It seems like there really is no break. And, the Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, I mean, those are 3 teams that always are in the news. Dodgers, I mean, are there any ways they can add on to that team if they can really do that? But we'll find out, how do the Blue Jays do? How can they get back?
I was just about to say, if there's any team that would not be surprising to me that makes a pretty good push this offseason for some guys is the Blue Jays. And I did obviously make a free agency and trade prediction for a bunch of guys. I put that on my X, so make sure obviously to follow me and in terms of for that type of stuff. But one of the moves that I put out for the Blue Jays was to make a trade for Mackenzie Gore from the Washington Nationals, a guy specifically that the Nationals I don't think will be able to keep long term. And I think for the Blue Jays, they can get another top of their guy specifically out there on the pitching side. You can maybe put Chris Bassett if they re-sign him to the bullpen where he really thrived in the postseason. And then you really have the top 3 of Kevin Gausman, Mackenzie Gore, and Trey Savage. I mean, that you talk about that as a 1 through 3 and a really good AL East, right, where the Red Sox and Yankees still be there. But, I mean, that would not be a gimme per se in terms of who would win it because Mackenzie Gore, I think, is a very, very good pitcher. And I think that you really can line up those top 3 guys specifically in a team like that. It wouldn't shock me for the Jays to obviously make another big splashy move at the deadline.
Yeah, and the Yankees will be getting Garrett Cole back at some point next year, too, to help with that pitching staff. And they have to decide what they're going to do with Cody Bellinger and Trent Grisham, too, and then what they're going to do. Ben Rice, probably your everyday first.
They picked up Tim Hill today, too, the Yankees. They picked his option up, and then Weisiger is now going to be out on the market, which shouldn't be shocking because obviously he was on the decline for the last couple of years.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. That's been a big problem. I've been a big fan of the Weisgers, but he's been hurt more often than not over the last couple of years. But you see, I mean, you spent a whole thing on that. But Ben, let's wrap up the show. Let's do a little college football here to wrap up the show this week. because it's that time already. Here we are in November, and I tell you, if there's any season that flies by quicker, I want to know, because the college football season, it goes by quick.
It's crazy.
Because you know what it is? It's every week matters. I mean, it's not only the way you play, it's not only you winning, but it's how you win. And I think that's kind of significant when we talk about the first college football playoff rankings that came out on Tuesday night. And you had Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and Alabama, the top 4. Now, there's a little bit of the debate and discussion in that. Could you put Texas A&M at number 1 because of who they faced? Ohio State really has not played anybody outside of Texas this year, and that was at the start of the season. The one thing I always take out of the first rankings, Ben, is to not overreact, because usually the first ones, it's not how it's going to be next week or the week after or at the end of November or as we head closer and closer to that big day on Sunday. So I really don't have an issue with this, but we'll see. But real quick, what did you make about all this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an Ohio State fan, and I mean, I would not be surprised if we're at the top, because, I mean, yeah, obviously our schedule has been kind of more favorable, but if you actually look at the overall team that we've had, our defense under Matt Patricia and one of our former guys with the Patriots, the Ohio State defense has been very, very solid, I'd say, for the most part. They did obviously kind of really edge it out in the first half against Penn State last week, but all in all, it's been a really good season for the Buckeyes. Julian Sayin, Johnny's been absolutely incredible. He's putting up some very, very good stats. His 20-plus yard throws. He's been one of the best deep passing quarterbacks in college football. Then you obviously pair him up with a guy like Jeremiah Smith, and then you have Donaldson and a couple other guys in that backfield. It's just a very, very good team. Indiana, obviously, with Mendoza, he's obviously been great. And then A&M and Alabama. I mean, Alabama, Ty Simpson is probably one of the most unique quarterbacks that we've been kind of seeing all year. So it doesn't really surprise me. You can really kind of put any of these top 4 teams, it really wouldn't surprise me kind of where you kind of put them as of right now. Like you said, this is just kind of an overall a baseline of kind of where things are. I did watch some of the show last night, and I did kind of saw it, and a lot of times you kind of can question kind of where teams are kind of placed. But when I saw it kind of yesterday, at least for kind of the first overall week outlook, I didn't seem like it and be like, oh my God, why is there a certain team now at this kind of spot? It kind of felt like, okay, I definitely see it there. So I think the next couple of weeks we're going to kind of figure out specifically kind of where everything kind of lines up from there.
Yeah, and a couple of things also to take out of the Tuesday night rankings. The top ACC team, Virginia, at number 14. The committee designated Memphis as the top team from the group of 5. Notre Dame still in it, possibly for an at-large bid. Look at their season so far, and I like the fact now that we're playing Pittsburgh, who is in the top 25, so another good team for the Notre Dame to play Saturday afternoon there in Pittsburgh. And we'll see that they have to win out. Obviously, they've been playing a lot better. Jeremiah Love has been absolutely outstanding. CJ Carr has been playing better. The defense has been getting better. So it's been good to see here too. But Ben, obviously this is all going to depend on the matchups and stuff.
Right.
But I truly think the 2 teams that I think we're on a collision course for, and this would be if the matchups get us to this point there in January down in Miami, would be Ohio State and Alabama. I think what Alabama's doing this year is remarkable because because they're doing this with an unknown guy at quarterback, Ty Simpson, who's been playing outstanding. But they've had to do this with one of the more challenging schedules that they ever had in their school history. They've had ranked opponent after ranked opponent. They've had to go onto the road. That win against South Carolina before the bye week, I thought was huge because that's a game that last year South Carolina wins. I know they've taken steps back, but I truly believe that we're on a collision course for this. I'm not trying to downplay Indiana and A&M because they've both been great too, but I just feel like Ohio State's defense is lethal. Their offense, Jeremiah Smith, I think, is going to be one of the best wide receivers when he goes pro. Teams would actually tank for him. That's how good I think he's going to be. Bama has been getting great production from Ryan Williams, Jam Miller, their running back. So I think that they're definitely, and with their schedule, they're tested. It's not like Alabama's playing like the Mercers every week. They've actually tested a lot this year. They've had Vanderbilt, they've had Missouri, but they've aced it. I mean, they had the loss against Florida State, but that was a different Florida State team when they played them. There was a different Alabama team when they played them. So I truly think, barring something crazy, that I think we're looking at Ohio State and Alabama in the championship. We'll see as these weeks go on, as we head towards December, if it could be like that. And I'll wrap up the college football talk with something really quick to think about. So Auburn fired their head coach. I think we're also looking at possibly 3 more firings between now and the end of the season, or when the season ends. We talk about this whole buyout thing. I think we're looking at Dabo Swinney in Clemson, Mario Cristobal in Miami, and Shane Beamer in South Carolina, all going to be gone by season's end. I mean, Clemson losing to Duke at home, 46 points to Duke. I mean, it's a new low for Clemson every single week, it seems like. And now you're losing to Duke and giving up 46 points to them at home. And then Miami, of course, another bad loss that they had to SMU, which, of course, doesn't make our Notre Dame loss to them look good, even though it was very, very close. And South Carolina's just taken major steps back this year. They fired already their OC and Mike Shula, and now I think it's only going to be a matter of time before Beamer is gone. But that's something to watch also here as we head down the stretch. Just 4 weeks left, and then conference championship, and then it's bowl season.
Yeah, no, like you said, it goes by so quick. But the last weekend of November is always kind of a very fun type of sports weekend, because it's kind of like college football, the championships are kind of getting there, but then like the NFL season, you're kind of getting that last month before the playoffs kick in. It really just kind of overflows like crazy. The college football show should be very, very fast in the next couple of weeks, kind of leading up to that conference championship weekends. It wouldn't shock me too. Bill O'Brien from Boston College. I mean, he's kind of just a name out there that I love Billy O.B., but I think that BC has just been just that bad this year. Like that, they need to have something else than what's kind of going on over there, because it's just been bad. But Dabo Swinney, I think, is the number one guy that you have to kind of consider. I mean, you look at the firings already, James Franklin and Brian Kelly. I think that Dabo Swinney could kind of be that next big time guy that's done there. He's obviously won a championship already over there, a national championship. He's obviously had a fun run over there. But Clemson's been always a team that never loses at home, and they're just losing at a constant pace this year, Johnny, at home. It's been absolutely unreal. I think they lost to LSU, I'm pretty sure, the first week at home, and then they lost to SMU. They lost them. Yeah. They lost to they just lost to like so many bad teams at home, or very mediocre teams. I know Klubnik's obviously kind of been up and down. He's had some injuries, but that's been a kind of a team that usually kind of have a very good hardship. They always are very well put together over there. But this year, it kind of feels like everything's kind of falling apart. So that's definitely a team to me. Miami University, obviously getting Carson Beck in there. They've been very up and down with their situation. So we'll see what happens. But what I do know is the college football season has really been flying by, and we're going to have a very, very exciting finish. I really do believe that.
I totally agree. It's 6 weeks, and in 6 weeks we'll have our first round playoff games on that Friday night, December the 19th. So definitely something to keep in mind there. All right, that'll put a wrap on episode 90 of Moving the Goalposts. Again, just your friendly reminders to make sure to like and subscribe at youtube.com/ETB Network. And of course, make sure you have your notifications set so you know when all of our stuff's going to be coming out, all of our shows, and also all of our playback streams, which will be simulcast to the YouTube side. I know we have a lot coming up here over the next several weeks. And if you can't watch us on the video side, make sure to listen to Moving the Goalposts wherever you get your favorite podcast. And Moving the Goalpost is presented by Playback. So, Ben, thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me, Johnny. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we get to do this again.
Absolutely. So, for Ben Kruse, I'm Johnny Montalbano, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.